Thank you tonight for the opportunity to come together as a body, as GSM, as part of Grace Point, and just to lift up these words to you, God. That through our brokenness, through our hurt, God, we can see you. We see the love in your eyes, and then tonight you're trying to reveal yourself to us. Through these songs, God, through the word that you put on my heart, through our connect groups, through each other, God, you're constantly reaching out to touch us. And how great and how beautiful is that truth. So tonight, God, as we prepare our hearts to receive what you have for us, as we prepare ourselves to listen and to take notes, to engage in the message and then go to engage in our connect groups, I pray that you just still our hearts. That we leave the homework and the stresses of what's outside this place. And we just be present in these moments, God. We're so grateful for tonight. We love you, Jesus. In your name we pray. Amen. You guys can have a seat for me. What's up, GSM? Are you happy to be back after the snow week? That's some good enthusiasm. I like it. Okay, my name's Brennan. What you need to know about me is I work here for the church. I work with Oasis. And Sean, Steve, and Jana are all gone, so therefore you have me. So I hope you enjoy it. We have a combined service tonight as you look around and see all your friends. And we're doing the high school series, but I promise middle schoolers you won't be lost. It's a lot simpler, so we're going to walk through that. And the series we've been walking through is Mine, or in middle school you guys have been doing Deep. And they have the same kind of gist. In Mine, we've been talking about how do we take a faith that sometimes is our parents, sometimes it's our friends, and how do we make that something important to us? And then in Deep, we've been talking about how do I take that next step? How do I go beyond where I am to just go deeper in my faith? And we've looked at ways of doing that, and it's been from reading the Bible, serving, attending church, being in a small group. And now today we're going to continue to add on to that. How do we go deeper? How do we make it mine? And many of us have grown up in church settings. We've come to either Grace Point or a different church with our parents or our grandparents. Maybe we came with a friend. But some of us haven't. Some of us didn't grow up in church, and we haven't been around this kind of setting. And no matter where you started along that road, no matter where you've come from into tonight, we all eventually have to make a decision. And that decision is what we call mine. The decision to follow Christ is something you individually have to make. Everybody in this room, nobody can make that for you. And that's what this series is focusing on. So tonight I'm going to start off by telling you a little story about myself and how I came to make that decision. So like many of you, I actually grew up in church. I went to a Lutheran church. I went every single Sunday with my parents, and I always was so tired and tried to sleep long enough where they would feel bad waking me up so that I didn't have to go. I mean, some of you probably tried that tactic. But I would always go. I got confirmed, which is when you go through a youth group at a Lutheran church, you get confirmed at the end. And then I stopped going. I never went back. I just wasn't interested. It bored me. I thought it was kind of dumb. I was like, I had some friends that went, but it just wasn't something I was interested in. And then I got to junior year of high school. In junior year of high school, I had this buddy named Tyler. And this guy, he's like 6'7", he played football, he played basketball, he went to Augustana for sports, just this stellar athlete. But I looked up to him for a different reason. He had this kind of intangible nature about him. He was always happy, he was always at peace, he was always calm, and he was kind to literally everybody. And I was like, there was a part of Tyler that I strived to be like. He was the guy I looked up to. He was the friend I looked up to. And one night, we went to this thing called FCA. Some of you might have heard of it. It's called Fellowship of Christian Athletes. It's in high school. I think here at Brookings, and they also do a pretty big job of it at SDSU. And at this event, Tyler spoke, kind of like I'm speaking to you guys now. He didn't have a mic or any of the fancy lights. It was in somebody's basement. He just sat down and was telling us what was on his heart. But that night I went home after Tyler spoke, and I sat in my bedroom, and it hit me. I don't know if this has ever happened to you, where you've gone home after a message that Steve or Sean has preached, or you went to a Sunday service and you're just like, I honestly think the pastor was talking to me. Just me. Nobody else, just me. And that's what I did. I got home, I sat there, and I was like, I haven't gone to church in like 10 years. Why? Why is God doing this to me? I only went to FCA because there were some pretty girls there. This was before I met Allie. And I would just go hang out with the pretty girls, you know? I was just there for a social event. Why was he talking to me? And that night, I seriously considered what it looked like to truly follow Jesus. What's it look like to take this thing seriously? And I sat down and I started writing a list. And this wasn't a list of steps I needed to take. I didn't need to go buy a Bible and start reading, but this was a list a little bit different. It was every question I ever had that scared me about Christianity. The questions ranged from anything like, how do dinosaurs fit into the chronological theme of the Bible? To, does God really love me? Did Jesus die for me? And I wrote these questions down. And the next day, I met up with my pastor. Even though he had no idea who I was, I sent him an email and said, come on in. We sat down for 2 hours and we just walked through every single question on the list. And we went back and forth, and I argued a little bit with him, and I shot some questions back at him, and every single time he responded lovingly, and he was just wanting me to know the information. And through that, I actually took notes, and the next week at that FCA meeting, taught that to my classmates. And through those questions, through what I conceived as my doubts, Jesus reached me, someone so far from Jesus. And tonight we're going to be looking at those doubts. Because before I asked any of those questions, I thought I was the only one that has them. I thought I was the only one that cared and had these hard questions. But after I spoke that night at FCA, after I went and talked to all those friends in that room, I had so many people come up to me after and be like, that question is something I've wondered my whole life. And the answers I gave were just kind of basic. They weren't anything overwhelming. But what I got out of that night is the first note on your note guide. It'll be on the screen. It says, we all have doubts. It's true, we all have doubts, and this spans beyond just Christianity. The same is true for a lot of different aspects of life. Think about it. Let me lay this scenario out for you. You're sitting in your class. Your teacher's just been finished explaining like 10 minutes worth of directions. And have you ever been that kid where you're just sitting there and you're like, I still don't know what's going on. Honestly. So I have this college class right now. It's my college communication capstone. So it's supposed to take everything I've learned in my college education and put it in one class. And I swear, every time the professor says something, I do the head scratch. Amen. Amen. John is in my class. Every time I do the head scratch. And eventually, after a couple days of doing the head scratch, I leaned over to the guy next to me. I was like, bro, do you have any idea what's going on? Because I thought, everybody in the class was doing the polite nod. They were probably sleeping, eyes closed. I just could only see the back of their head. But I turned to this guy next to me and I was like, okay, do you have any clue what's going on? And he turns to me and he says, dude, I haven't found anything out since the day I walked in on the first day of class. So we started to ask around. We started to ask people, and it turns out nobody in the whole class, like John and I, has any clue what's going on. So these doubts we have, a lot of times we think we're alone. But a lot of people have these doubts, and it just takes a step to ask about them. And the hard part of it is those doubts we have about church, a lot of times we don't feel comfortable asking them in church. Because this space, it can be fun. We have 9 square, gaga ball, ping pong, pool tables, video games. We actually have food here. We've got smoothies and Italian sodas sometimes. The Super Bowl party is packed with food. So this is a fun place for us to hang out. And when we bring our doubts in there, sometimes we feel like we can taint that. But deep down, we have big questions. And that's the second note on your note guide. So when I was studying, when I was preparing to talk to you tonight, I was actually listening to this, and someone said, nobody talks about their doubts in church. And I was like, they're kind of right. Why is that? Why is nobody talking about these doubts they have in church? And I came up with two things I probably think are similar, are reasons why. And the first one is, a lot of times when we have those doubts, we think that makes us a bad Christian. The second one is, we think it makes us less worthy than those around us because we don't think they have doubts. But tonight, I'm going to tell you that here at GSM, it is okay to have doubts. It is okay to ask questions. It is okay to speak out about things that you don't understand. This is a safe space for that. Because when we think about it, it's crazy. The stuff we're talking about in this setting, in GSM at Youth Group on Sunday mornings, doesn't make a lot of sense. We're believing in a God we can't see. We're telling stories like this guy Moses, who split a sea and walked through on dry ground. We're talking about people who are blind and now see, people who are paralyzed and now walk. And the whole thing centers around a guy who died and came back to life. And you're telling me nobody's got questions. Come on, we have to have questions. That makes sense. And those questions have different levels. Some of them are more surface level, like, does God want me to be dating this person? For high schoolers, maybe it's, does God want me to go to this college? But some of them get a little deeper. Is creation really a 7-day creation? Did miracles really happen? Is Noah's flood something that really existed? But then we can get a whole step deeper. Is God real?
Yes.
Does he love me?
Yes.
Is Jesus who he said he is?
Yes.
And as we take every step, thank you for the yeses, as we take every step deeper, it gets a little more fragile because those questions can be a little tougher. But the truth is, even though we have different levels of questions, we all have questions. We just don't talk about them.
Amen.
And why don't we talk about them? Well, I talked about a couple of reasons, but another one is our faith is sometimes important to us. Not everybody in the room. Some of you are still feeling it out. Some of you are still checking out what GSM has for you, and that's okay. We're glad you're here. But for those of us that come every week, who are involved in maybe a Sunday group, who are invested in our Connect groups, our faith is important to us. This night is important to us. So we believe sometimes that those doubts are going to erase that importance. That if we start asking questions, we might stop believing. So we just ignore them. We just push them down. We just try and run away from them. And we start believing that that's what good Christians do. We just roll with whatever the pastor says. We're just rolling with whatever the Connect group leader says. And we never answer those questions that really probe us deep down. But guess what? Here's the truth. They're not going away. They always come back, and a lot of times, they come back a whole lot louder. So tonight, we're going to ask the question, what do? What's God want us to do with our doubts? And as we answer this question, I think we're going to take that next step of making our faith our own. Moving that faith from my parents, my friends, my grandparents, to now it's mine. Because a part of claiming your faith is dealing with your doubts. And if you're sitting in this room tonight and you're like, okay, Brendan, I hear you. Doubts are okay. But I got a lot of doubts. Well, don't worry, you're in good company. Because the people who lived and experienced Jesus' miracles also had doubts. First-hand accounts of his doubts. And we're going to look at a dramatic case of this in Mark 9. Jesus is with 3 disciples. They've left for a time, and they're now coming back. And he comes and encounters his other disciples, and they're arguing with these religious leaders. And in Mark 9, 16 through 18, it'll be on the screens, we'll see what Jesus says. He says, "What are you arguing about?" A man in the crowd answered, "Teacher, I brought you my son who was possessed by a spirit that has robbed him of speech. Whenever it seizes him, it throws him to the ground. He foams at the mouth, gnashes his teeth, and becomes rigid. I asked your disciples to drive out the spirit, but they could not." Let's take a pause. Crazy story? Nobody else is like demon-possessed kid? Crazy story? I think it's nuts. Crazy story, but we got to look a little deeper. What's going on here? Really what we have is a dad whose son is sick, and all he wants is for his son to be healed. All he wants is for his son to get better. And he's coming to Jesus, the only guy he possibly can imagine, after years of maybe healing. And isn't that us sometimes? I know it is for me. when that family member's sick, when that relationship just doesn't get better, when that thing that keeps struggling with, it keeps bothering you, doesn't go away, this guy teaches us, come to Jesus. So what's Jesus do? First he asks to see the boy. In verse 20 it says, so they brought him. When the spirit saw Jesus, it immediately threw the boy into the ground in convulsions. He fell to the ground and rolled around, foaming at the mouth. Jesus asked the boy's father, how long has he been like this? From childhood, he answered. It has often thrown him into fire or water to kill him. But if you can do anything, but if you can do anything, but if you can do anything, take pity on us and help us. Pause. This guy is standing in front of Jesus. Jesus, the guy who healed the incurable, who calmed the storm, who raised a little girl to life with the word. And he asks, if you can? If it's possible, maybe? And I think most people in this scenario are going to straight up lie, because that's probably what I'm doing. I'm probably on my knees, begging Jesus, I know you can do it, I know you can do it, please heal my son. And those words are coming out of my mouth, but they're not reflecting what's in my heart. But this father, he doesn't do that. This father was brave, and he was honest about his doubt. And what's Jesus do? Does he walk away? Does he correct him? Does he yell at him? Does he just get super mad because he couldn't be more wrong? No. He just simply repeats what the man said to him. And this isn't mocking. Jesus isn't mocking the Father. He's meeting the Father. He's meeting the Father right where he is. In that doubt, in that uncertainty, in that questioning, Jesus stands there with the Father. And he says in verse 23, if you can, said Jesus, everything is possible for one who believes. Immediately the boy's father exclaimed, I do believe. Help me overcome my unbelief. Isn't that a weird thing to say? The guy literally just said, I do believe, but help my unbelief. I do believe, but I doubt. I want this to be true, but I still have questions. I want to have faith, but I still have doubts. I need this to be true, but I'm not sure. And I think some of us are there with the same frustrations. We're stuck somewhere in between belief and unbelief. We're stuck somewhere thinking that those two are polar opposites. And here's this guy, this father, this dad, who has both. He came to Jesus and he knew what he was supposed to say. Jesus, I know you can heal my son. But instead, he says what is true, what is real to him. And guess what? Jesus is okay with that. He wasn't disappointed or mad. He didn't get upset. Instead, he did the exact opposite and healed the man's son right there, on the spot. And Scripture doesn't go on to tell us what happens to this man. The story kind of ends there. We don't hear what happens with him and his son. But let's imagine for a second. What if that's you? Your son's been sick his whole life, and this Jesus just healed him with words. I know my faith no longer has that doubt. My faith was so strong after those moments. Because I think we're the same. Those doubts you have, those questions you struggle with, talking about them doesn't mean you're going to lose faith. The opposite is true. Dealing with doubts is part of growing in your faith. Because when you talk about them, your faith becomes more durable, more strong, more mature. And when you deal with some of those doubts, next time they come up, next time you have doubts, next time something hard happens in your life, a loved one's sick, that faith is strong. It's strong. And that brings us to our application. In Matthew 22:37, Jesus said, love the Lord with your God with all your heart and all your soul and with all your mind. All your mind. With all your mind. Jesus doesn't want us to turn our brains off. He doesn't want us to just stop thinking. He's challenging us to step into that, to love God with all of our minds. And it means your doubts. So I have 2 points for you, and the first one they'll throw up on the screen. Stop ignoring your doubts. Tell God about them. He's big enough to deal with your doubts. Let God be God. So under that point, here's a little line for you. And And that line is a place for you to write a question down, to write your doubt. And some of us want to fill the whole page with the things we struggle with. Some of us can stare at that sheet of paper for 10 minutes and never get anything. That's okay. I'm going to give you a second to write something down, so think about it. Okay, moving on. If you didn't get it, we'll come back to it. You'll have time in connect groups to keep pondering on that. But point 2, be honest with one other person about your doubts. There's another slot. There's another line. What do you think you're supposed to put there? Put a name. This person could be Sean, it could be Steve, it could be Jana, it could be me, it could be your connect group leader, it could be your parents, it could be a wise friend, someone who's farther along in their faith journey than you are. But write down their name. Make it real to you. So as you write that down and maybe ponder your doubts a little bit more, let's go back to my doubts. I sat in a situation very similar to yours. Listen to someone speak, and then reflecting on what they said and writing down questions. And the very questions you're currently writing down are the questions that saved my life. They saved my eternity. They gave me life with Jesus. They gave me a real, authentic faith. Those very questions. And in this place, you're not going to be criticized for what you write down. It could be anything from silliness to really serious questions that really probe your heart and are hard to tackle. Don't worry about those. But as we kind of close up, I encourage you to think about your doubts. If you have none, that's okay. If you doubt literally everything I've said, everything you've ever heard, that's okay. We're here to help you with those doubts. And that person you wrote down, they don't know everything. I don't know everything. Steve and Sean don't know everything. But we're here to help. We do know some. And what we don't know, we're going to help you search for. And when you come to us, we're going to share our experiences about we dealt with our doubts. And through those 3 things, we're going to grow together. So last point. Too many people lose their faith as they enter high school or college or adulthood. And these people aren't losing their faith because they're asking questions and finding answers that they just can't live with. They're not asking these tough questions and getting stuff back that they're just like, I can't keep following Jesus after that. These people are never asking their questions, and their doubt is sitting inside of them and rotting. And now they walk away because they can't deal with that anymore. So my goal for you is the note on the screen. I want you to have a strong, healthy, growing, and honest relationship with God. That includes your doubts. And it starts with reading your Bible, serving, attending church, being in a small group, and dealing with your doubt. That's how you make your faith deep. That's how you make your faith mine. Let's pray. Father, tonight as we've talked about doubt, something that can be really hard, something that can weigh on our hearts in such a heavy manner, I pray that you just open us up to what you're trying to tell us. God, that through tonight you just put people in our lives that can help us walk through that doubt. That even though these questions can be hard, even though these questions can be something that we don't ever think we'll find an answer to, that God, you've placed that for your own good. You can work that for your own good. So tonight, as we go off to our connect groups, as we go off for our weeks into our classrooms and our families, let us ponder these doubts and explore them with people who are willing to walk with us through that. Jesus, we love you, and we're so excited that we get to come to GSM and learn about you and praise you. As we go to connect groups, just bless that time. Be with our students and our leaders. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. You're dismissed. 10th grade boys and 9th grade boys are staying in here. Everyone else